What's up, YouTube? Today we are dealing with a slight problem in the 55 show tank, and it's the algae. So let's get to it. So I recently went on a trip and I had to leave for about a week. And all this algae appeared on this back wall and all over the plants. And I wanted to find a non-chemical solution on how to fix it. The first step is understanding how the algae came to be in the tank and why there's so much. Algae forms when there's an excess amount of food, waste, or a lot of light in the tank. Because this is my show tank, I do tend to feed this a little bit more heavy, and especially when there's guests, I like to feed them to show it off and all. Also, the type of food that you feed your fish can play a big part, as the more live food or higher protein content foods can lead to a lot more waste comparative to other foods. When I returned home after my vacation, this entire tank was covered in tiny particles suspended in the water column, and that was mostly of the algae breaking away when I wiped the front glass. And what that does, if you don't suck it out or do anything with it, it just latches onto another piece of plant or hardscape, and it continues to grow. So the first problem we have to deal with is the food amount, and I do want to keep feeding the same amount, so how do we solve it? So one of the main heavy hitters in the tank is going to be this pothos. It's been in the tank for a while, but the root structure has not gotten that big, so we're still waiting. But I have also gotten this spider plant, and these spider plants are supposed to be well better than pothos and peace lilies. According to my research, they take a quarter to half the amount of time it takes Monstera, peace lilies, and pothos to adjust from soil to water nutrients pulling from the roots. And with pothos, they add little vines that go across that you can cut and you can cultivate. That's what I'm doing right here. And as you can see, you cut the node and a little root pops out, and all you do is keep this in water, keep letting it sprout roots, and these are going to be taking so much more faster than a pothos plant coming from a soil to water. These roots are going to grow a lot faster. But back to the spider plant, these plants grow runners like this that are independently its own plant. And when the time comes, this is going to start to sprout roots, and it's going to pull nutrients, and it's going to also provide such a nice root structure once it's fully grown. If you've been watching my channel for a little bit, you know I love hydroponics, and I grew these tomato seedlings in a little thing of dirt. And once they got to a good size with the good root structure, I threw them in here, and these are the survivors out of the cluster. You know, they are seedlings. I didn't expect so many to die, but I'm glad that I do still have some remaining. And these guys are going to be pulling tons of nutrients from the water because they're going to be bearing... Tomatoes are a fruit, right? The next issue is going to be the suspended particles in the water column, and what I did was clean and fix my canister filter. It goes all the way down to right here. I have this bucket just in case it leaks, as it's better to be safe than sorry, so I am being very cautious of water leaks and checking it daily, but so far so good. I am missing a intake guard for the water filter, so that does suck, but I put a baggie, a little mesh baggie with a sponge, and that is also collecting particles in the water. And there's tons of sponge material and tons of bio rings and carbon and charcoal and everything that we need for the tank to keep the tank healthy The only thing is that it just started filtering. So the bacteria is going to take a very long time for it to grow, but because the tank is already cycled, I'm hoping that it shouldn't take that long. With the water being more clear and the nutrients that the algae were using to grow and multiply is being used by new plants, what is another thing that we need to do? It's the light. So with the light, I have it suspended to provide these plants a good bit of lighting, and especially if I have tomato plants growing right there, I do need them to get a good bit of light. And having it a little bit more further away, it darkens the tank. It's kind of hard to see on camera, but in person it's well darker than what it used to be. And dimming, I didn't dim the brightness because it is a good foot away from the tank, and what that does is the intensity is going to allow the not as intense light is going to allow the algae to not grow as fast and allow these other plants to grow, because these plants, as long as there's a good bit of light, they should do fine, especially these crypts. This crypt right here has sprouted 2 new leaves in the past week, so that is super fun and exciting that I'm able to grow these relatively hard plants. Because I don't have a painted back or anything covering the back glass, I wanted a wall of algae on it. I do enjoy having the algae and that natural look, so I'm okay with having algae on the glass, just not on the plants. And as you can see, there's tons of algae. It's gotten better, but there used to be tons and tons of algae on the glass. And I was running this for 10 hours a day. And I know it's a lot, but I was super paranoid with plants and making sure the tank was up, and I did want algae in the tank because the algae, it provides a food source for microorganisms, and that allows the slightly bigger organisms to feed on them, and the fish can snack on them throughout the day. And that's what also allowed me to leave my fish tank for an entire week without worry. So to summarize how to stop algae in your tank is you need plants, especially fast growing plants like house plants. If you are into hydroponics, think about some tomato seedlings, or in this tank, I have green onion, which is a really big grower. You know what? Let's see the roots. See, they have massive, massive roots. And see, this is the pothos in this tank. It has a massive root structure, and it's pulling all the nasties out of the water and algae. There's only a little bit of algae on the front, and that's totally fine. And honestly, this tank is really, really good in terms of quality, while this tank is still making its way. Next tip is, if you scrape any algae off, make sure you do a water change, or you have something that's going to scoop up and kind of filter out all the particles in the water, because if any algae is remaining in the tank, it's just going to hook onto something else and then start to grow. The last tip is lighting, is make sure that the intensity of the light, if it's on top of the tank, it's not too bright, because that can contribute to algae spikes, and also how long you run it. It was running for 10 hours, now it's running for 8 hours, so it's a little bit better. If you found this information useful, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any other tips, feel free to comment it down below. I'm always willing to learn new tips and tricks. Have a good one.